first, and we'll start with Paul Gilmore, Sky Sports News.
Thanks, Adrian. Hi, Frank.
Hi, Paul.
Frank, have you any injury or availability updates, in particular around Arisa Balaga and Thiago Silva, or any fresh injury concerns?
No, well, Thiago's fit. Taking him out of the trip to Russia was more of a maintenance issue for him. Kepa is outside as I speak, has got some progression in his shoulder injury. So we're hopeful, but we'll see with that one. And in terms of the rest of the squad, we don't have any clear injuries, but we do have a bit of a tired group. We arrived back quite late in the early hours of this morning, so I'll have to assess everybody as much today, but probably more tomorrow, to see how they've settled down over the next 24 hours, and we'll see where we're at.
So clearly, perhaps some tiredness a factor, but how much do you consider previous success in fixtures when selecting a team? I'm thinking specifically of Pulisic and the impact he made at Burnley last season.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm aware of it. I don't always factor in games from last season, but I'm aware of it. Christian played a lot of good games last season. He's an important player for us. Came on last night and we saw his qualities, and it was important that he had some rest last night because he's played 3 games in a week since he's come back from injury. So I'll have to take the balance of history or the players, the fresher ones I feel, and also trying to keep some consistency and stability in a starting 11.
You mentioned Pulisic and his impact last night, Ziyech as well, Hudson-Odoi, and then that's before we mention all the other attacking players. How are you finding that in terms of trying to fit them all in? Does the sheer number of games help you convince them that their time will come?
Yeah, well, I mean, with Hakim Ziyech, I thought he was really good last night, and you consider that's his first start for months, so he hasn't been fit, so that was a big plus of the evening. With the other players you mentioned, I think not just myself, but all the managers, particularly managers who are competing in European football at the moment, and finding that this is a really heavy schedule of games. So we do need options. In an attacking areas, we have options. We're also searching for relationships because some of the newer players are learning about each other and how we want to play. So I've got no problem with the options at the minute, and the players have to understand that when you play every 3 days consistently up until Christmas and beyond, then there will be some rotations at times, and we need everybody.
And you mentioned last night, Frank, the discussions you will have over penalties. Now, obviously Jorginho's record is very good. In Timo Werner, you have a striker there who would benefit maybe from scoring goals. When it comes to those discussions, how do you approach those discussions?
Well, I've left them today because they slept for about 4 hours, so it may be not the best day. I've got no problem with either in terms of the penalty takers, and not just Timo and Jorginho. We have other possibilities at the club, so it will be something I will broach before Burnley, because what's important, as we've seen in history, is that we're very clear going into the game who is a designated penalty takers. But my confidence is in both of them, so I'll have a nice little open chat with the pair of them and others if needs be.
Okay, thank you, Paul. We're going to move on now to Talk Sport and James Simunga.
Frank, you mentioned there that Thiago Silva was left out for maintenance issues this week. Is that more of an age thing or his physical condition? And I wonder, do you see that being an issue, dropping him in and out of the side from a consistency point of view of that back line?
No, I just think with Thiago personally, then it makes sense. You know, I know I was the player towards the end of my career, not to say towards the end. I think he has ambitions to keep playing for a good couple of years, and rightly so, the way he looks and the condition he's in. Just trying to make sure that we get the best out of him over the course of the season. And I think in this schedule where we have game after game after game, a game that involved a lot of travelling that we've just been through in the last couple of days, it just made pure sense. And I spoke with Thiago. If he had to play that game, of course he could have played it, but we have to put it in the context of what we've got ahead of us. So in the end, it ended up a nice exercise in the fact that we got a result. Antonio Rudiger came into the team and played really well last night. So that's the competition we need as well. We can't just rely on starting at 11. We need everybody. And Thiago, I'll manage slightly differently because of the circumstance.
In terms of, you look at the opposition manager this weekend, Sean Dyche, he just celebrated his 8th year anniversary at Burnley. The way you're going about your job on a day-to-day basis here at Chelsea, are you planning to be here for an extended period of time? Maybe not 8 years, but planning to be here long term at least?
I'm planning for the weekend. I'm planning for the next month. I'm planning to see how well we can do this season. No manager, I think, will probably commit to the answer that you want me to say there, that I'm going to plan any further than this season. So I think it's a great achievement by Sean and what he's done at Burnley, and an absolutely fantastic achievement actually when you think about the balance of the Premier League and the spend and the outgoings and what results he's produced there year after year. I've got absolutely a huge amount of respect for him, and they're always a difficult game. We had 2 good results against Burnley last year, but I've got no doubts, and I've watched them, particularly their last game against Tottenham, and how difficult they made it for Tottenham. It's going to be a very tough match.
Vicky Sparks, PLP.
Hi Frank, good to see you.
Hi Vicky.
Obviously, Frank, the longer you are at a club, the more you can influence it. You've been in charge here for just under 16 months now. Are you where you expected to be personally in terms of moulding the team and the style of play to your own philosophy at this stage?
Well, it's always a difficult question, because when I came in, the not so the problems, the circumstances were very particular. We had a transfer ban. We had a lot of players coming back from loan, who were quite a lot of younger players. So you have to take each situation at face value and try and deal with it. I thought last year everybody at the club dealt with it very well, because it was a successful season to finish in the top 4. We gained Champions League football, and now we find ourselves in a different position with different players, and then now the onus is on us to work as hard as we can to find a balance and move forward, which is why we brought in players. That's the whole point of that recruitment. So I think we're working in a really positive direction. I keep talking about the need for patience and hard work at this period, because I understood early in this season that there will be some difficulties in trying to compete in this Premier League, which is unforgiving, with new players, and some of them have never played in this league before. But the signs I see game after game and week after week are a lot of positives, plus things we need to work on. So can't commit to any timelines or where I expect it to be, but at the minute I've got real aspirations that we can keep improving, and as a group keep growing.
And just on Burnley as well, you mentioned it there, but obviously it's been a tough start for them in the Premier League this season, but really played well against Tottenham on Monday. Yeah,
again, I would always respect a Burnley team managed by Sean Dyche for the qualities that they have. I watched the game against Tottenham. They were very unfortunate to obviously not take anything from the game against a very good Tottenham team. And it was everything you expect from Burnley in terms of their organisation, their effort, their desire and their qualities. I think people can pigeonhole Burnley. I don't. I know they have quality players. I know they have a very effective way of playing and a very good manager, so I expect a tough match.
Liam Truman, please.
Hi Frank.
Hi Liam.
You switched to 4-3-3 in the second half against Krasnodar, and you had 2 of the attack-minded midfielders either side of Kante. It kind of seemed to open things up a little bit. We saw that after the restart last season as well. Is that something that you're going to want to look at in the weeks ahead a little bit more of?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I think that served us well at times last year. Of course, at times we changed around that last year as well. It's nothing new that we play 3 at the back or 4-2-3-1. But of course, when you're bringing in new players into the club, and it's a great thing to bring players with versatility in their game, and I love that. But you're also then in the early stage of the season trying to find the balance for the whole team, the thing that brings out the best in all the players. And I keep saying that, it must sound like a broken record, and it's not an excuse, but normally you have a month or 6 weeks and probably 2 weeks in America or the Far East to hone down these things. We actually are doing them in real time, so it's maybe normal that we've had to find different solutions to different games. 3 at the back against Manchester United made us feel a lot more solid. I think the 4-3-3 against Krasnodar gave us different angles of pass and maybe an idea that we could press her up the pitch. So there are things I think that will... there were a lot of things last night that gave me a lot of answers to things that I have my own questions on, and there were a lot of positives to it.
Nick Purewell, please.
Hi Frank, is it fair to assume that Jorginho won't have lost any of his nerve in terms of penalties, just because he's missed a couple? And just separately on Ziyech, obviously, we saw him moving off his wing and creating a bit centrally. And does that kind of set a good example for what you want in terms of attacking thirds?
I think with Jorginho, he, if you're going to take penalties as regularly as he does, and I did, you're going to miss some, and you might have a patch where you miss a couple because of the level of goalkeeper, the pressure situation. It was not normal actually that Jorginho had such a great record. That made him sort of unique and stand out. So I've got no worries with his confidence, and he shouldn't have any lack of confidence for it. So yeah, I'm not concerned about that at all. I'll speak to him about it myself. Hakim Ziyech, yeah, I mean, I think to have, when we brought Hakim into the club, it's because I'd watched him a lot and we'd played against him the year before, and I knew his qualities that he can play as a winger that gives us real width, but also gives us the clever movements when he comes off the line and can really produce important passes, assist kind of passes or break the line passes that he takes on that maybe other players don't. So he brings us something certainly I feel different to what we have in terms of style, and the real glimpses, and more than glimpses, that he showed last night are really positive signs.
Okay, we're going to do two more in this section. There's Hakim Ziyech and then Jerry Cox to pitch.
Hi Frank, well done last night. I just wanted to point towards some comments that you might have read with Jesse Marsh, Salzburg manager, saying that at first you didn't really rate Christian Pulisic, but that eventually you kind of grew into your thoughts. I wondered what you made of those and what happened really with sort of Pulisic's progression over his time under your management.
Yeah, I did read the comments. I was surprised that Jesse had managed to read my mind as well as he thought he did. He's recounted the conversation wrong. I have to put it correct, because it was a game against Salzburg where we played them. Christian scored 2 goals in pre-season. Fair enough, Jesse came up to me and said what a talented player Christian was, which I knew and I agreed with, and I spoke about the fact that it was such exciting to see how he can develop for us with the talent that he has. That was the conversation. Jesse managed to put it across slightly differently. Maybe there's Jesse knows the feeling of American managers and coaches that travel into Europe, and so maybe he has feelings I don't have. I get that, but one thing I did have was I played in America for 18 months, and I would never not underestimate the desire that American soccer players have, football players, to learn and improve and take on information and understand the technical side of the game. So when you have that, which Christian has, and you have incredible talent, it was never in doubt for me. My only thing is I coach in the Premier League and I played here for nearly 20 years. So I understand the rigours of it. And I suppose that probably brings me on to Christian's development last year. It would have been, it's clearly the toughest league in the world to come and play at a young age from a different league. And it's not just Christian that would have felt that in those early stages, but some of the greatest players in the Premier League history, whether they came from America or from Europe or anywhere in the world, have felt that. What Christian did was find his feet very quickly and have a breakthrough season in the Premier League where he produced more goals and assists than he's produced. So I thought his performance last year was massively impressive on his own. He will get better and better because he's a young player, and I never doubted it in the first place. And that's not me jumping on Jesse, because I think there's probably a bigger issue there with American players. I don't want to comment on that. He can feel that one himself. But as a manager, I never doubted Christian, and it's important for me to put that straight, actually, more for Christian than anything.
Okay, last question, Jerry Cox.
Hi Frank, can you hear me okay?
Yes, got you, Jerry.
You've got your squad fully fit now by the look of it, but we were speaking to Pep Guardiola last week and talking about the number of games, the number of injuries and how that's going to impact on teams. We've already seen Liverpool with Van Dijk injured. Is this year the teams that are most successful going to be the ones that can cope best with injuries and have the squad that can cover?
I think, Jerry, I read Pep's comments and I thought he was absolutely spot on. And I think it will be a season like no other where, and none of us can control that. We can't control the injuries that come upon us at different times. They're not there. You cannot always read them, whether they're impact injuries like Van Dijk, Liverpool recently, which took big news, or muscle injuries, which we're seeing more than ever of at this stage of the season. I think the ball was firmly dropped when clubs turned away, or the Premier League turned away from having 5 subs. We're clearly in the most unprecedented times in terms of the situation in football, which is carrying on. It's not going anywhere in the short term. The demands on players are huge, every club, and I thought that was the thing that I completely agree with Pep. I'm not just talking about my squad, I'm talking about every football player that's been asked to play day after day and put themselves at injury risk, and it's changed the landscape. So we'll try and manage it as well as we can. We're fortunate in a way that we have a big squad here, but at the same time we want to do the best. The pressures are on, the players want to get the right results, we do. So it could certainly have a big effect this year, more than any other year.